The American higher education system, stemming from key philosophers like William James and John Dewey, who are advocates of a self-critical culture of scientific knowledge. Science is based on the primacy of self-doubt. Personally, I think that translates into also a criticism of your surroundings, the world you live in.
Without social justice, we cannot, as human beings, fulfill our destiny.
There's a student group for almost any cause you could imagine, and that's a great thing. We have this event in the fall called Festifall, and it's a way to expose incoming students, newer students, to all the student organizations at Michigan. When you take it as a whole, you say, wow, these are our students, and it's amazing. It's this real fabric of the world in this square of the Diag.
It really feels like a central space, and this idea at this point that's ingrained for people, activists and advocates, that when we're concerned about something, we'll go here, we'll work from there.
If students in a university aren't raising hell, then something's wrong. The purpose of a university is to encourage students to break through walls, to break through doors, to open doors.
Some of these protests have been against the university and have forced us to do better and to be more expansive and more inclusive, and that's made this institution much better.
Some universities say, oh my gosh, the students are protesting again. I say the students are protesting, what is it that they're bringing forward?
A university like ours, it's our duty to be at the forefront of things like equality that matter to the world.
If you really are going to say that we want you to be original thinkers, we really want you to explore your own development, we really want you to try new things and so on, it would be hypocritical then to squash certain aspects of that. And I think faculty and administrators at Michigan for a long time have therefore been much more open to self-expression from students.
We have always played a role in the open debate and discourse of important ideas or controversies. We were very early as a university to admit women, and we were very early to admit African Americans and Asian Americans and other minority groups.
There were big fights over abolitionism in the 1850s. The issues of the Civil War were talked out in Ann Arbor on the campus. And then in the 1950s, there was controversy and discussion over McCarthyism.
It's the famous Davis-Markert-Nickerson case that they were protesting the suspension then firing of two of them.
These were three individuals that were faculty here at the time of the McCarthy era, had been brought before the House On-American Activities Committee, but refused to testify against any of their fellow faculty or anyone else for that matter. They were brought before their unit committees, before university committees, and Markert was kept here and went on to get his tenure. Both Davis and Nickerson were dismissed. At the time of dismissal, Nickerson was a tenured faculty member.
And that introduced this guy, Al Haber, to political activism, which began in a political affairs club, sort of a discussion club, and then in 1960, founding Students for Democratic Society. The Port Huron Statement, the manifesto of Students for Democratic Society, drafted by Tom Hayden, who had been a student here, editor of the Daily, and in fact, the core group of leaders were Ann Arborites, largely graduate students.
The Vietnam War was picking up. And of course, that was a major issue for lots of us, and we wanted to study it. We wanted to study Far East policy of the United States. So there were sit-ins and teach-ins here. And it inspired a number of us.
And the teach-ins began in 1965, I think. That's early for the anti-war movement. It didn't really pick up in most places until 2-3 years after that. Michigan really did lead the way in the anti-war movement.
And one of the things that's really quite remarkable about the teach-in is how it took that essentially confrontational model and turned it into a much more embracing model that reached a much wider spectrum of opinion.
In May of 1970 came the first BAM strike, along with the actions at Kent State. and gay liberation along with women's liberation.
BAM, the Black Action Movement, right, which starts so dramatically in 1968, really days after the assassination of Martin Luther King. And really kind of, at the passing of this great civil rights leader, start to ask some really serious questions about Black empowerment and inclusion and diversity on this campus.
Black activism was born out of the concern of Black students primarily, try to make changes with the institution. And some of it has to do with regard to the clash of the people and cultural backgrounds.
Granted, the university is very interested and has said repeatedly that they want to move to set up this area of study. My question is, can we set up an area of study which is going to be helpful, which is going to be viable to the Black community?
When I look back on the efforts of students to integrate, to come to this university, to find their own place, to make it their own, I think about the profound challenges that means. Those borders are extraordinarily difficult, and the barriers and the legacies and the inheritances are profound. And I think any individual who in the past 100 years has tried to cross those is a hero.
We need to be on the lookout every minute of every day for injustice, for gaps in the university's support, and then to voice our concerns. And students, in my long experience here, are sometimes listened to with attention, especially when the students escalate their requests, which may become demands.
Social justice, to be really effective, depends on social movements, collective action. And it doesn't work without some conviction that you believe it's really possible that the future will be better.
What's really wonderful about an institution that renews itself continuously with young people is that they're going to look to the future, and they're going to pull the rest of us along with them.
Made possible by the Stanley and Judith Frankel Family Foundation.